Okay. Now opening, just give a little brief intro to opening.
Okay. So you got the little indentation, that's just to remind you your thumb goes in the middle. The fingers out here are got to be somewhere. They're not doing anything. Everything is done here and with the fist. Nose over the top of that, and I start pushing down, and I let my thumb just take the natural fold that it'll take. So I end up with this little indentation here, and make sure you have water on there. Now, with my fist, I simply slide that clay over towards 7 o'clock, and once this gets to the edge here, I bring my hand over here and I put my fingers here by my thumb. This is not doing anything but help brace this. And with this part of my palm here, I turn this down towards the wheel head, hold it, let it go around, relax, take my hand away. And then, again, I want to flatten this out, so anything that I'm flattening is always this part from the side, elbow inside my hip. I'm helping, my right hand helps my left hand. So I lean in slowly, and I'm looking for that clay to get down and touch the wheel head. So this clay here, I'm watching for that to touch the wheel head. It's there, I hold it, let it go around. I move back to the middle just to smooth it off so it looks real pretty. And now the clay is centered. And if you want to check it, make sure your clay is centered. Don't open your clay up if it's not centered. There are no shortcuts. If you do, you're just going to end up with a mess that you're going to have to wedge up and get started again. If you want to check and make sure the clay should be centered all over. So you should be able to put a cut-off needle down here and over here, and it should touch all around. If it only touches on halfway, push it back up, center it, because what happens when it's off-center is when you open it up, one wall will be thicker than the other, and it'll absolutely drive you crazy. Now, we've got to start opening this up, so we start making it into the hollow form. Once again, nose over the top of the clay. Get as many fingers on the tip of your thumb as you can, because what we're going to do, if you look at this, we're going to make a V shape into that clay. And it's going to be caused, what's going to create it is this shape of the thumb pushing down and these fingers on top of it. We're going to start, just kind of curve in, and the thumb is just slightly off center, so the tip of the thumb is really just slightly off center. If you get a little thing of clay coming up there, it means that you're not touching that part of the clay. So start pushing in. And take this down. Once your clay starts moving, that's something that you really want to become familiar with. You want to understand when that clay is moving and when it's moving smoothly. So as I take this down, once I feel that it's really, me and the clay are on the same page, I just keep that going. I try to keep that same feeling. If I push on the clay and it seems to be resisting me a lot, it means I'm trying to move the clay too fast. If I think I'm pushing on the clay and nothing is happening, it means I'm not pushing enough. So when you start down, it should feel very smooth. It's that wonderful feeling that you and the clay are kind of in the same spot, moving together. Now, next hand position is left hand in first, right hand over the top, and what you're not going to do is hold your fingers like this and try to open it up. You've got to be down like this. This is a stronger hand position than this. So trying to do it this way, you're probably going to run into some problems. What we want to do here is we have a shape that's like this. What we want to do is pull this out so this is straight up and down, and about maybe 3/8 of an inch thick down here. So my next move is to pull on this, get this out to where it's 3 fingers wide, which is wide enough to allow me to get in to do the next step. Now I want to talk just a second about when we push this down, it's fairly wide, and so you may say, well, I don't want to make a pot with a wide bottom. although most things that are made on the wheel have a wider bottom and a more narrow top. But we want to start off with a base that's wider, and we want the clay to come up and in like this. This is a much more stable form. If you've had any experience on clay, you'll know as soon as it gets straight up and down, you start having problems with the top wobbling around. It kind of drives you crazy. So the idea behind this technique is to have a wider base to start with, bring it in like this, and then as we go along, I'll explain, we're going to push that in. So eventually, this will be about this wide. So we will have pushed it in altogether probably close to 3 inches. Go back to the hand position. Left hand in there first, right fingers over the top of that, and they're flat. And so what I do is I start pulling straight back, and again I'm looking for that feeling that the clay and I are moving together. I'm not pushing it too hard, and it's moving. So I pull this out to where it's about 3 fingers wide. I want the bottom to be flat, and then one of the things that I do right at the end is I want to, I'm going to make a little notch back in here so that when I start the next movement, it'll make it easier to move the clay. One of the things that's going to happen here when you start pulling this out, the clay is going to try to push you up. When you move the clay out this way, it just can move out, but when you push against the wheel's not going anywhere, and the clay will have a tendency to push you up. So you have to be careful when you do this, otherwise by the time you get finished with the next step, you'll have a bottom that's about this thick in the pot, and you don't want that. You want that clay to be up in the side, helping you make a taller pot. Now, you need some water in here for this. This part here, my fingers will be going like this, and I'm going to cut back. So this is about this thick. I'm going to cut back underneath so it'll be about half that thickness where my fingers are. So again, arms braced down on my legs, nose over the top of the clay. Now I can't get 6 fingers in here, but what I do want some help. So I have my left hand in there, my right hand, the fingers are on the knuckles of the left hand, and they're going to help push that clay back. So I'm starting now, I push that back, and I'm going to take it back about halfway. So the overhang in here is about like that. And the thickness so it's this thick. And the idea now will be to take a hold of this here with my fingers on the inside, touching this very inside part of the wall, this part of my palm on the outside. I'm going to lock my thumbs together, and the idea is to pull the clay between that opening and come up and in. And when I get finished, I want it to be all the same thickness. That's when you're working on making any kind of change in the wall. That's what you want. When you finish this, you want the wall to be all the same thickness, thinness, whatever. Okay, so I'm starting up. I'm going to hold this as firmly as I can. I don't want the clay to push my hand out, and I don't want to turn in and make it thinner. So I start up, and I'm pushing with my body weight and moving up and in. You can tell by the sound of my voice, I'm doing this with my body weight. When I get to the top here, I'm going to hook my finger around here and kind of straighten this out a little bit. Clay just kind of stretches apart there. All right, now slow this down a little bit. This clay has a tendency to, when I put the pressure on it, this clay has a tendency to stretch apart a little bit here. So this is a little thicker up here. I'm going to have to make an adjustment in this. So I'm going to, you watch, I have my fingers on the inside, I'm pushing out, I have these together, and I'm pushing with my fingertips. I'm not using this part. To get the clay moving, I'm going to start here, and I'm going to curve out and up, and I want these fingers to be pointing into here. I don't want it over here, I don't want it over here. So I push out, and you can see that bulge right there is where my fingers are, and I'm moving up and in. When I get to the top, I have to back away with this and bring this around.
when you do those illustrations, do them right over the pot. You go on a frame over there, you can't see it.
So what am I doing?
Any illustrations you do, that you're pointing at your hand and stuff, do it over the top of the pot.
Okay. So, I don't know what illustration I was doing, but so we come up here, back away with this, bring this around, and then finish this off. So now the wall is actually in pretty good shape here. When you check the wall, don't do this. Use fingers on the inside, fingers on the outside, and use your fingertips so that you have some feeling of what's going on there. I kind of push this together just a little bit. It's just, from just throwing, and I check it and I realize I see something's happening there. It's just an automatic thing to fix it while I'm there. So that was a little thicker at the top, and so I did something that I only do at the top. This is the only spot that I squeeze clay. Now there are a lot of techniques where people teach you that you squeeze the clay up. You can make small pots squeezing up clay, but you cannot make a large pot squeezing up clay. And not that big is better. A small pot can be beautiful and elegant, and a large pot can be big and really ugly. Now, the beautiful part about this particular technique is by having this end, this is a much more stable form than coming straight up and down. If this were to get out too far, and I didn't like that, I would use what I call the fix-it position. I don't want it to be straight up and down now. So the fix-it position, I use it every time I throw. And I know it has saved a whole lot of pots. The right hand, fingers together, straight up and down. I want to straighten the wall. If I do this, I'll get indentation. So I do this. My hand is cupped. This is stronger form anyway. The left hand, fingers on the fingernails of the right hand. I don't want these touching, because if I lose kind of track of what I'm doing and I pull in, I could catch a finger in there. I've seen it happen lots of times to beginning potters. This just barely touches, and this just barely touches. So again, here and here is just barely touching. It's doing something, but you don't pull in with that. The work is all done here, and you want to do that at 1 o'clock. Remember, it makes a difference where you are. If you're over here, the clay is going that way. Here it's coming in this way. We want to pull into this. So I start moving up and pulling it in. And you're looking for that feeling that the clay is moving, and it's moving smoothly. If you don't feel anything, it means nothing's happening. So we get back to where we have the top a little smaller than the base. So now you can actually do a knuckle pass on this. And here's the trade-off. If you have a thick wall, you want something large to hold it. And pretty much for a knuckle pass and a hand pass, the fingers are the same. For a finger pass, it's more delicate, so you pick a finger you like, but you're using the pads of your fingers to move it. We'll get into that later. So right now, I'm going to do a knuckle pass on this, and remember I talked about making the base a little smaller. I'm going to do a knuckle pass, one knuckle pass, then I'm going to start making the base smaller. So I want to make sure there's some water there. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to push out from the inside and get a bulge. This is the relationship there'll be. I'll start like this, push out. This is going to cause the clay to stretch out and get thinner. It's going to move around my fingers, and the knuckle is going to take it and push it back in. So I'm going to take a thick wall up here, thin it out. It's going to go around the fingers and the knuckle and come back as a thinner wall. Now, I'll get into that in a second. So, and I want to work. I never work. Most of the time when I'm doing this, I don't assuming this is 4 o'clock, I might start at maybe 4:30 and move up towards maybe 5:30, something like that. So you see that bulge coming out there. That's my finger. So what I'm doing is I'm just pushing out like that, and you see where it's touching. It's touching on the pads, and it's directly opposite here. So now I simply hold that and I move up and in and I thin it, and that's how the wall gets taller and thinner. Now when I get to here, because I have the bulge, I back away with this and I bring my knuckle up, and somewhere along the line, get to about here, I'm going to bring my thumb up. It just rides there right now. I bring this around, and then it kind of finishes the top a little bit, but this is the hand position I prefer if I want to do something at the top. Thumb on the outside, finger on the inside, and put this finger between the two of them. Not over here, but right there between them. So this controls the outside, this controls the inside, and that controls the top. Now, I'm going to take what I call the cut-off stick, and I'm going to take this clay away from the bottom. This is the clay that's difficult to move, and I'm not going to hassle with it. I got enough clay here to do what I want to do. So, get this. Now, it's actually gotten to where it's a little almost straight up and down. So I'm going to use the fix-it position again. So, he's helping here. Hold it, let it go around. Now if I bring this up and I take my hand away too fast, I'm going to have this that I have to catch up with. Always hold it, let it go around, relax, back away, let it go around, take your hand away. The fix-it position, you really, let's say you develop a small wobble. It had to be centered, but let's say you develop a small wobble. The fix-it position touches here, touches here, touches here. 1 o'clock, hold steady, move up, get that wobble out of there. Never make another move on your clay if it has a wobble. You might think, oh, maybe if I just hurry I can get through this, but you'll be back at the wedging table in a heartbeat. Now, remember I talked about making it smaller at the base? I'm going to take this part of my palm, and I'm actually pushing into the clay as it comes into me, so you can see I'm going to push that into where it's a little smaller. Now by the time I do that a couple of times, I will have taken this in a considerable amount. And because in the process of doing that, it actually is now almost straight up and down, I'm going to take the fix-it position, I'm going to pull it in a little bit. So make sure I have some water where I need it. I'm going to do another knuckle pass here, so I'm going to push out with my fingers and push out and up, and now I'm ready to go. And I'm kind of moving up and in. It's a little dry. Okay, so, and you can see and when you get to the top, backing away with this finger, turning this knuckle up, and now doing the top, and you get some idea of how much, and this isn't done yet either. You get some idea of how much height you can get out of that amount of clay. So once again, it's kind of ended up being straight up and down. So I want this. I'm using the fix-it position to pull this in. Got a little thin spot down here. Got a little thickness in the bottom. I was trying to get that out of there. Check this and see what I have. I'm going to take this clay away down here. I don't need it. It's a little extra clay in there. I'm going to take that away. Now, there's a little bit of a thin spot there, but I have some extra clay up here. So what I'm going to do is, because it's a little thick from here up, I'm going to make a knuckle pass from there to get rid of this clay. So now I'll be able to hook my thumb together here very quickly. So I push out, And now, you see the bulge, that's the kind of bulge you need to move clay. If you don't have some kind of bulge, you're just squeezing clay up. Okay, get to the top, turn this in.
Are you going to make a particular, what shape are you going to make?
Okay, well, I'm going to show you, I'm going to do 3 different shapes with this.